What's up, PGF Nation? Today, we're breaking down 5 of our favorite sleepers in this year's NFL draft. 5 for me, 5 for Alex. These are guys that we think are flying under the radar here and could become potentially big-time contributors at the next level. And look, guys, if you're looking for even more of our favorite sleeper draft prospects, we're going to be dropping an article here soon with all of our favorite sleepers exclusively on the newsletter. So go over to pintglassfootball.com and subscribe for free so you don't miss out. Alex, why don't you kick this off, man? Who's your first sleeper here on your top 5 favorite sleeper list?
So I'm in North Carolina. Obviously, I'm from New York, but it may seem like a homer pick for a lot. But Siobhan Ravel, I think the story of Siobhan Ravel needs to be explained a little bit. This is a guy that was a high school player, had no offers, and went to work for Amazon. His father sent his tape to ECU. He ended up getting a workout. He was working at an Amazon warehouse, and instead of going home, he stayed while his father finished his Amazon shift at Amazon, and he slept in the car, and then they drove the 2.5 hour drive because it's not close to the typical Charlotte or Raleigh area that people are accustomed to. They drove 2.5 hours to ECU on the other side of the state, and he had a workout, and then at that workout, he showed up and then showed out. So this is a guy that has grit, that has determination. These are the guys that you talk about that they may not be the most talented, but they're going to outwork your best guys because they want it more. These are the stories of your Julian Edelmans and those guys who are quarterbacks or anything like that. And he's that guy. If you look at his first year, he had to get back in total football shape. He was in shape, but like I said, he was working at a warehouse, so he had to get in football shape. So sophomore year, didn't play too much. Then his junior year, he starts 12 games, 54 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and then a sack as well as an interception. And then the last year, he did get hurt this last year, but in 3 games, 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 2 interceptions, and 1 of them returned for a touchdown. So he's not going to be your day 1 or perhaps day 2 pick. He's more likely going to be a day 3 pick. He is 6'2", 194 pounds, so he is a bigger, taller back, a guy that can play in man, that really excels in man, but can also play zone. So if you put him in cover 2, he won't get lost. But if you're talking about a guy in the 3rd or 4th or perhaps top of the 5th round, this is a guy that you could perhaps develop and that can turn into something into the NFL.
Love that story, man. Those are the coolest kind of stories. And the NFL is made up of so many guys like this. For all the 5 stars and all the highly recruited guys that go and play at Texas or Georgia or Michigan or Oregon, USC, like all those guys, look, there's a ton of those guys. And we love those guys. But there's a lot of stories like this in the NFL of guys that just fight and scratch and claw to make their mark. And I absolutely love that story, man. And ECU is one of those programs. For a small program, they really do a great job of identifying talent that kind of slips through the cracks and developing those guys and getting a lot of guys in the pros. For a small program, they do a really, really good job with that. I'm excited to see what he does here. My first NFL draft sleeper that I'm circling here, Alex, Damian Martinez, the running back out of Miami. This guy is probably going to be projected to be a 6th-round pick. I think 5th, maybe at the earliest. But this is a tough, physical, power back, gets downhill, runs behind his pads, has really good speed for a big physical back. Not breakaway speed, not home run speed, but good enough speed for a guy with that kind of size. I think he's definitely going to be a rotational back early for someone, possibly even a goal line back, a short yardage guy, because he's just so tough with the football. So circle that name, Damian Martinez out of Miami. I think he's getting a little bit slept on in, look, a really, really deep running back class, and that could be part of it. But this guy is going to be a great value pick late in this draft for somebody.
Yeah, and we talked about it, Brad, on our previous pod. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you go to Spotify or whatever your local DSP is to check it out. We talked about the running back room. Well, not the running back room, but the running backs in this draft. And we said that there's possibly about 30 that can be taken. And here's another guy that's asleep, like you said, in the 5th round or later. 6 feet, 217 pounds, ran a 4.5, transferred from Oregon State to Miami to play with Cam Ward. He had high production at Oregon State, then goes to Miami, and it continues having that same production. That's something I look at for guys that transfer from one program to another program, he maintained his level of production in each. I believe 1,100 yards at both programs and 10 touchdowns at each of them as well. And let's not sleep on his ability to catch as well. So, Brad, for my second one, I have Dolak from Buffalo. Now, listen. Again, there could be some bias here. Khalil Mack, I'm a Raiders fan, came out of Buffalo. Malcolm Kuntz, another guy out of Buffalo. And here is another linebacker, Shane Dolek, 6'1", 215 pounds, out of Buffalo. Very active around the ball. Led that division twice in tackles. He did get hurt in 2023, so there was a little bit of a drop-off. But then comes back in 2024, his fifth-year senior, as a fifth-year senior, and led that division again. And not only that, Brad, he had 5 interceptions. So that means when you drop him back into coverage, he can track the ball and intercept the ball. And not only intercept the ball, but return it to the house. He had 5 interceptions for 177 yards. In the league, in the NFL, where we're now having these stretch tight ends, once again, check our last podcast because we did rank the tight ends from there. You're talking about a guy that can play, and that you can drop back in pass coverage, and that can hang with some of these faster tight ends and track the ball, not just knock it down, but also intercept it, because turnovers is a big part of this game.
You want to talk about another guy that just has a great story? This guy is a former walk-on, 3-year starter at Buffalo, big time production. And look, when you're playing in a small school, you better have production if you're going to play at the next level. And this guy was a stat stuffer. So my next NFL draft sleeper, I'm going to go with another running back that made my list here because, like I said, once again, really deep class. How about Jordan James, running back out of Oregon? This is the guy that's probably going to go in the 4th round, maybe the 5th round, but he's going to be a great value pick because this is a guy who likes to get north and south quickly. No wasted motion for this guy. He finds the hole, picks his spots, very decisive runner. And once again, speaking of production, back-to-back years, big time production at Oregon, very consistent running back, very good all-around back. Look, might not be elite at anything, but he's BB plus at everything. So give me a guy like that, especially in the later rounds. And here's one other stat that I love, Alex. 0 fumbles, 429 career touches. So a guy that takes care of the football too.
Yeah, and who was the running back that he was behind those 3 years those 2 years in Oregon? A guy that ended up getting drafted late by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Bucky Irvin. And we saw what Bucky Irvin did when he came into the league, a guy that I highlighted and even said during at the beginning of the year that he would overtake that starting job from Rashad White, and he did.
All right, Alex, who's next on your draft sleeper list here? Who do you got for us?
So I've been good. So I've been going defense the whole time. Let's stick with the theme. Jalen Reed, from Penn State, 6 feet, 213 pounds, a guy that I love, a 3-year starter, a guy that roams that backfield like a Hawkeye. He can tackle, is a short tackler, 2.5 sacks, so you can put him in the box. He's not afraid to tackle, and then he's also a little bit of a ball hawk. 2 interceptions in 2023, and then 3 interceptions this year, and 1 return for a touchdown. This is a guy that you'll probably put at free safety, probably more likely at free safety, so he can be a rover out there and can be an instant starter on your team, perhaps maybe 6 to 7 games in, because he does have a little bit of a tendency to try and jump routes as opposed to protect the back end of the defense, because he's the final line of defense. But that can be coached out of you depending upon the type of defense that you put him in. But I think this is a guy, and I'm going to sound like a little bit of hate, but in a draft where we're talking about Nick Imanaruro from South Carolina going in the 1st round, who I think could possibly be overdrafted, there's a few guys, but I'll focus on Jalen Reed. I think he is a guy that probably will be a better player in the league. He does not have the speed and height and weight of the kid from South Carolina, but I think he is a better player. I mean, there's several different players. We can talk about the kid from out of Texas. We could talk about the other safety from out of Notre Dame. I think there's a lot. I think safety is a position in this draft that, Brad, we might need to talk about perhaps we don't have time, but at some point we might need to talk about after they get drafted, how these guys will fit in the teams they get drafted to.
Oh man, we got plenty of time. We got a long off season, Alex.
Yeah.
We got plenty of time to talk about these guys, no doubt about it, man. I'm not done talking draft. And look, we'll talk sleepers here. Obviously, the NFL draft right around the corner. We're gonna have draft grades coming up here soon. We'll be talking about all these guys, and of course, throughout the summer, we're gonna be talking about these guys and how they're gonna fit on these teams and who we're looking forward to. So, plenty of time to talk about them. But yeah, I really, really like Jalen Reed, man. One of my favorite sleepers in this draft. Probably mid 4th round pick. I doubt he falls into the 5th, but I mean, just a really smart player. And one thing I always look for in safeties is, do you have good instincts? And this is a guy that has really nice read and react quickness, recognizes play concepts, recognizes route concepts, and gets that early jump on the ball with those really good instincts. I think he has, like you said, maybe not elite athletic traits, but definitely NFL traits. He's got enough athleticism to certainly play in this league, and I think he can be a difference maker. So circle that name for sure. I've got another guy on defense out of the Big Ten that I just don't think enough people are talking about here. We did our top 5 defensive tackle rankings recently. And look, this guy isn't in that group, but if you want to talk about a guy in the next group that is really kind of being overlooked, it's Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle out of Maryland. Right now, he's probably the consensus about 14th, 15th ranked defensive tackle. That's just too low. This guy's way closer to the top 10, in my opinion, because he's a big, powerful guy, holds the point of attack, can anchor, man to double team, can split double teams. And look, everyone's talking about him as a run defender, and rightfully so. But he also had an 11% pass rush win rate. So I think he's not getting enough credit for his ability to push the pocket and put some pressure on the quarterback as well.
Yeah, this is a guy, like you said, 6'2", 312 pounds. He might be getting a little bit dinged for his size in terms of what you saw on tape and how he projects towards the NFL. But if you're talking about a guy, if you need somebody to come in and be an immediate run stuffer and something that he does well out of the gate, this is a guy. Cowboys, we're talking to you because you need a defensive tackle, and depending on what you do in the first 2 rounds, this is a guy you may want to look at. You want to look at in the later rounds that you can perhaps develop into something behind Mozzie Smith and crew. But this is a guy that you can come in, put in. And one thing he does well is stop the run. Your biggest issue is stop and run up the middle. And again, I'm tying him to a team on purpose to highlight what he does well and what he can immediately come in and do and affect. And that's the running game.
All right, Alex, who's next on your sleeper list here?
So I have a guy, and he's probably one of these tweeners as we've been transitioning in the NFL from these big safeties who have now become linebackers. Corey Schwessinger. Corey Schwessinger is 6'2", 210 pounds. That is the weight of your typical safety. However, he was playing linebacker at UCLA. Now, he was there for 3 years. He did not start his first 2 years. He was just a contributor. However, when he got the opportunity to start at UCLA, led that division with 90 tackles. With 90 solo tackles. He had a total of 136, 9 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and then here's the other thing: 2 interceptions for 13 yards. That's the key piece when you look at these middle linebackers, as we're in this new age NFL where everybody's basically running 11 personnel and then having a stretch tight end out there. He can sit out there and he can work with the tight end and do some things. Again, late starter, but in the 5th round, this is a guy that you could take and develop.
Yeah, look, Alex, I love the guys that you're picking here, because here's another guy that was not a 3-star recruit, not a 2-star recruit. How about a no-star recruit walk-on? Another walk-on that makes your list, and I love it, because no one is going to outwork these types of guys, and they've had to fight to get where they are, and I love it. And it shows on the field, too, because this guy has a relentless motor, and I'm surprised you didn't mention that, Alex, because I know how much you focus on those guys with the motor, but, man, this guy never gives up on the play no matter what, can chase down ball carriers in space. Like you said, probably a little underrated in coverage, but he's quick to get downhill and make plays in the backfield. Really disruptive player, very good instincts, very smart player. I like that pick a lot, man. And we got a lot of guys out of the Big Ten here, Alex. I'm just saying. So I'm going to take a guy that didn't play in the Big Ten, but a big-time defender in his own right. How about Elijah Roberts, defensive end out of SMU? Here's a guy that's probably going to be projected to be about a 5th-round pick. Maybe he falls into the 6th round, but he's going to be a late-round pick here. Just remember this name here, guys, because 6'4", 285, long arms, big hands, and look at the production for this guy. 23.5 tackles for a loss, 17.5 sacks, and 4 forced fumbles in the last 2 seasons. Look, enough said.
Yeah, and let's not talk about when you say long arms. He also defended pass, so that means when he's not getting a rush on the passer, he can still hold his hands up and bat the ball down as well. Like you said, 17 and a half sacks. He started at Miami, transferred to SMU, where he finally was given the opportunity to display what we're now seeing and why we're talking about him now. Well, lastly, Brad, there's been a theme on defense. There's been a theme on Big Ten. I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction. I'm going to go to San Jose State, and I'm going to go to Nick Nash. Now, Nick Nash has a lot of production. However, at 6'2", 2.5, he ran a 4.57. We know how people feel about a 4.57 when a guy's not a big guy in terms of running that slow over 40 at the wide receiver position. But there's one thing that you can't do. You can't deny production. This is a guy a la Terrell Pryor, and I'm using air quotes when I say that came in as a quarterback, and in the last 2 seasons switched over to being a wide receiver. So he's been in school for 6 years. So I'm going to say that. But the first 4 years he was really focused on being a backup quarterback or trying to be a quarterback until they switched him over to wide receiver. As soon as they switched him over to wide receiver, he catches 48 passes, 728 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Then comes back in his 6 years as a 6-year senior. He catches 104 passes, 1382, and 16 touchdowns, and was an All-American. This is a guy that has high production. And again, I'm just going to tie him to a team because he played in that, not necessarily the Pacific Northwest, but he played in Northern California, where the Raiders reign true over there all the time. Obviously, there's the 49ers there as well. But this is a guy, if you're talking about the Raiders and you need a guy that can be an X receiver, this is a prototypical X receiver that has a lot of production. He doesn't have the numbers when you start talking about his speed and everything from a 40 standpoint, but soft hands, catches everything in his way, has a huge catch radius, and has the ability to go up and get the ball. I'm not saying he's A.J. Brown just because of the size. I'm talking about he's in that ilk in terms of development. If you can develop, you can possibly have a guy that is A.J. Brown-ish, emphasis on the ish, that you can have on your team that you drafted and perhaps anywhere between the 5th and 7th rounds.
Yeah, I think he's probably, a 5th-round pick, but another guy that I love the competitive nature of this guy. I mean, he has that nasty demeanor, almost plays like a defensive player with that physical toughness. And here's the thing. You mentioned the 40 time, 4.57. Look, I don't even blink at a number like that when a guy is almost 6'3", 205. He's got good size. So, when you're talking about a guy with some size, runs a 4.5, look, I think that's fast enough, especially when you can go up and get it. And a guy that really is crafty and knows how to separate. So, yeah, maybe he doesn't pull away with natural speed, so to speak, but he's a crafty route runner that knows how to get open, especially in zone coverage. So I like that pick a lot. And he's a guy, I've seen a few people kind of talking about him. There seems to be a little bit of buzz about him right now as a popular sleeper. So yes, definitely circle that name for sure. My last sleeper here is going to be a cornerback out of Louisville, Quincy Riley. Now, this is a guy that's probably going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, but nobody's talking about him. For a guy that's a mid-round pick, played in the ACC, it seems like nobody's really talking about this guy, but look, the production is absolutely there. 15 interceptions, 39 pass breakups. He is a twitchy athlete, ran a 4.48 40-yard dash. He's a former track star, so he's got big-time speed. Look, Quincy Riley is a guy to watch in this draft, and a lot of people are kind of talking down about the cornerback draft. Maybe it's not as good as other years. I get that. But if you want a value pick at a guy that I think could definitely be an impact guy early in his career that you can get in the middle rounds, circle Quincy Riley's name out of Louisville.
Yeah, and I think because it is a weak cornerback draft, he's actually being boosted up a little bit further. And I think, Brad, I don't know, you said you had him around a 5th round pick?
I'm thinking maybe 3rd or 4th.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's where I had him too. Like, I think a 3rd or 4th because it is not the greatest cornerback draft. And once again, I'll reiterate it again, in the league where everybody's running 3 wide receivers out there, plus a stretch tight end, you're going to need these guys that can play all over the place. And I think he's another guy that can play all over the place with his frame. I think you could kick him inside at some times, for the most part, because he does need to be developed a little bit more. I think he really only has about maybe 2 years and maybe a 5th year senior in terms of his production on the on the big stage for the most part, where you get to see him against more known talent, more known coaches, and more known schools and things like that. But I think this is a guy that's getting pushed up, but there's the potential there that you could develop him if you take the time and put him in the right scheme.
Absolutely, man. Look, this has been really fun giving you guys some of our draft sleepers. We love doing this every year. But look, if you're looking for even more of our favorite draft sleepers, like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we're going to be dropping an article here soon with all of our favorite sleepers. It's going to be exclusively on the newsletter. So once again, go head over to pintglassfootball.com, subscribe for free so you don't miss out when that drops here soon. But guys, if you enjoy the podcast, do us a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let us know in the comments who is your favorite draft sleeper. And that is going to be it for today, and we'll catch you guys next time.